budget meeting to order, and I'll ask if there are any disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Okay, seeing none, I will ask for a motion to adopt the minutes. Do you want to read it first and then, okay?
The minutes of the special meeting of council held on March 10th, 2016 be adopted as circulated.
So I need a mover and a seconder for that. Alderman Gilmore, Alderman Hassels, any discussion or errors or omissions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried. And before we do the presentation, I'll give a quick introduction and welcome tonight, and then maybe we'll make it a bit more formal at the next council meeting. But our new CAO, Michael Smith, is here today, day 2. So I think he's had a busy couple days, but I want to welcome him here. I'm glad he's here for the second budget meeting, so we'll give you a welcome.
Thank you.
We'd clap, but there's only like 4 people here, so, all right. Okay, thank you. Okay, so now, after that clumsy introduction, I will hand it over to Robin for the revised budget presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Jeffs, councillors, aldermen, I should say, staff and residents. Okay, so tonight is the second budget presentation. I'm going to go basically through the changes we made to the budget from what was presented on March 10th. Look at the effect of those changes and then have any questions. So it won't be as detailed as last time. I think at the end, it's just because this one's a very short presentation. So what has changed? So per the council motions from March 10th, 2016, the transfer to the election reserve was removed and the cost for the yearly maintenance fee has been funded from the reserve, so that was a $6,100 reduction. The transfer to the arena reserve was removed, that's $148,000. The planned boiler replacement for the library community hall, fire hall was removed, $20,000. And then there was a transfer from the Parkland Reserve to fund the Quarry Road Beach project, which was $21,700. Changes made by the senior management team. We increased the revenue estimates based on new information that's been received since that time. One was such as the POA. I did get a firm commitment from the region that's going to go up. Some supplementary billing, we increased that because I got some information from MPAC on their estimates for this year. So revenue went up $30,000. We decreased some expenses by going through line by line and just seeing some changes we can make, such as like council conferences, things like that we went through. Decrease in wages and benefits based on some new information. We did a little change in our benefit package, which reduced the cost slightly. And then we increased the transfer from reserves for the vehicles that weren't bringing in enough revenue to cover their costs. That has always been the practice in the past to do this. We were just trying to not use up our vehicle reserve, increase it. And then there was a decrease in the transfer to reserves. It was just to the general reserve, it was 50. It's always been 54,000. We bumped it up to 56. We brought it back down to the 54. The increases to the budget was the removal of the well monitoring program. As explained last time, we removed the whole project, but the wages and benefits, but now what happened there, Sarah? Okay, it was like that. So those wages and benefits, because it was just an allocation of a full-time staff member, it went up into other parts of that budget. And then we increased the transfer to the infrastructure levy by $65,000. Went from 125 to 190,000. So all this means, I went through, and so this is the 2016 net budget by department, the increase. So the net levy increase after growth is 1.922. So the library had no change. I'm just going to go through the departments that had a large decrease or increase in the budget amount from March 10th. So the general revenue, we estimated the revenue increases by $24,600. The increase to the transfer to infrastructure levy, $61,000. 95, so of course there was an increase. 91. Roads, we decreased the budget of $40,815, and it was made from a transfer from reserves for vehicles of $28,000, and then the balance was small changes to revenue estimates, wages, benefits, and expenses. Building maintenance. So there was a reduction to the budget of $171,000. We removed the transfer to the arena reserve of $148,000. Reduced the capital projects by $20,000 for the boiler upgrade, and then the small changes to wages and benefits. But I'm going too fast today. Okay. And then recreation, that budget decreased by $22,700. Of course, it was the funding of the Quarry Road Beach project by $20,700, and then some small ones. Into the capital projects, of course, the only changes were to remove the boiler and to fund the Quarry Road Beach project from the Parkland Reserve. Reserves, we increased the transfer to the infrastructure reserve, the $65,000. Decrease to the transfer to public works equipment, $28,000. The arena reserve, $148,000 was removed. The general reserve, $2,000, and we removed the transfer to the election reserve of $5,000. So in summary, what this comes out to, there's the 2015 average assessment and the rates. So the property tax bill was $3497.80. With the new Township of Wainfleet budget, we have the region, we have the waste management rates. They are set. Education rates still aren't in, so I used the same as last year. You see that the amount is $35.40. So it's a total increase of a tax bill of $43.15, which is a 1.23% increase in the total property tax bill. And questions?
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Robin? Alderman Conk.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the boiler reduction, on the capital projects page in the budget book, you've got unspent funds from 2015 of $20,106. Can we not use that money to add back into the $20,000 we took off so that we can complete that project?
Through your worship to
Or
Alderman
am I
Conk.
just misunderstanding?
Yeah, the $20,000 is already being used to fund some of the other projects. So the $20,000 is, the total capital projects are $199,000 without the boiler.
Yep.
And we're using the $20,000 from last year that was unspent on the
Okay.
gate, fence and gate. And then we're transferring to reserve, so our net cost is the $79,000.
So the answer is no.
More questions, Alderman Conk, or no? Okay. Any other questions from council members? Alderman Dykstra?
Through you, Madam Mayor. In regards to the Quarry Road Beach project, I know that we collect under new lots and new lot creation, new developments in Wainfleet. We collect for our parkland dedication fund. I'm just wondering, we don't want to throw this at all at the Conservation Authority, and can we not get any of that lakeshore enhancement money to fund that Quarry Beach project?
Through your worship to Alderman Dykstra, there has been discussion to try and get some money from the region. They just don't know if it's to get some money, then we would reduce the reduction from the parkland.
Okay, so just to clarify, so if we approved it, we are still asking, we still have an ask out there to the region for the funds?
Through your worship, Alderman Dykstra, through Michael Sullivan, yes, we will be asking for money if it's available to help us. It's just as the Augustine Road Beach.
Any idea when we would know?
Richard, no, because I was going to say it seems to be in the spring. It'll be soon, from if memory serves, but maybe I'm.
Through your worship to Alderman Dykstra. The region hasn't actually set the timeline date for the registration yet for the last program, so we actually haven't applied for yet. Michael's monitoring that. As soon as they know and how the funds are going to be allocated, then we're going to be applying for that funding as well. And yes, we still are gonna try and delve into the Niagara Peninsula Conservation to kick in some money for the parking lot as well. So this may reduce costs, but we didn't get commitments obviously yet because we haven't applied for the funding.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions from council members? Oh, you had more?
I was through you, Madam Mayor, I was letting somebody else go, but I do have something else in regards to fire. I know there's no changes in fire, but I just wanted to ask the chief a question. Are you feeling confident that you have enough money budgeted to at least do the preliminary steps for the new fire hall? I understand the new fire hall down the road we will probably have to venture for possibly, but I'm talking the groundwork, any costs associated to drawings, engineers, anything like that. Are you confident you have enough in your budget to, going forward, at least get the ball rolling?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Alderman Dykstra. The money was, for the next council meeting, I put in a report that I would take the money out of the reserves to get the ball rolling, then to debenture the buildings. So that would take the money away from purchase of the trucks, but we would have to get a building big enough to put the trucks in.
If I may continue, so then what you're saying is you would deplete your reserves, which is allotted for new equipment, to do the preliminary legwork on starting the new fire hall? Like on the onset of it?
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to do.
Can I just ask Alderman Dykstra for you to clarify, when you say get the ball rolling, are you talking about like architectural drawings or, okay.
Absolutely anything pertaining to site plan, any sort of applications will have to do with the region, any traffic studies, anything. There's costs associated to even seeing whether we can build a fire hall there. I'm just wanting to make sure that there's sufficient funds allotted for any sort of, anything that we, there's going to be legal costs, there's going to be everything. So if we don't budget for that now, at least to get the ball rolling. I'm not talking about the build of the fire hall, I'm talking about the preliminary work. And I don't know, taking it out of the reserves, I don't know whether that's the right angle, because then we're depleting something else that is set aside for a new fire truck.
Okay, I know that had been floated around beforehand, and so there'd been talk about architectural drawings, and then you make a good point about any of the studies that need to be done. I'd like to think that we could have used the region to a certain extent as a resource without a cost. And I know Robin and I, of course, we met before this budget meeting. We talked earlier about the possibility of, like, there's been several fire halls built within Niagara over the last few years. Some are pretty fancy, and of course we wouldn't model those, but I'll take, for instance, and I complimented him on it today at the Mayor's Luncheon, the fire hall in North Pelham is kind of the vision that I have, at least for Burnaby. It's very simple. I'm sure you've seen it, Chief. So I don't know, and this is a discussion that probably, I don't want to get too carried away, discussion for a council meeting when this report's coming forward, but wondering if there's a way to share, to kind of model things. I mean, you still have to get architectural design, but to kind of look into that, and look into what they've done and maybe try and find some savings that way instead of trying to reinventing the wheel. But I don't know, what that would look like. I'm certainly not a builder by any means. You wanted to comment further?
Through you, Madam Mayor, just to comment on that, I think that's going to be the actual building stage, which we will probably be debenturing money for. And I see what you're saying, cost savings, we're not looking for a Taj Mahal, but I'm just talking about all the application process that we need to do before we even put a shovel in the ground. And there's costs associated to that. I just want to make sure that we're not depleting, we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul, because then we have a depleted reserve, which is allotted for a new fire truck.
So have we done any research into, do you have any idea what this would cost? I'd heard a number of like 40,000 floated around. So I think it's prudent to discuss this and consider where that's going to come from tonight. But I also think I have no idea what we'd be looking at for the type of things that Alderman Dykstra's talking about. So have you done any research or had any information?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the rest of council. At this time, we haven't really done any search on any of the money other than the actual bill will probably be somewhere around $1 million, give or take. When we put it out for RFP, we're going to do the whole RFP process and hopefully get the best number possible to do the whole shoot match. So we have not really looked at any set numbers yet because nothing's really been passed other than we're moving forward with it.
If I may, through you, Mayor Jeffs, typically on a building, so if I haven't, unfortunately, in the short 2 days, haven't seen what the anticipated cost of the build would be, but typically to get to the point that Alderman Dykstra is speaking of is typically somewhere in the area of 5%. So if you're talking $1 million, as the chief has just referenced, if that's the true number, the council would be prudent to be looking at the $50,000 mark for those anticipated costs. And that would get you a schematic design that would get it ready to put it out to tender for the construction industry to bid on that particular. Now that's a rule of thumb, depending on the type of design. So that's some advice that I would provide to council.
Okay, thank you, that's very helpful. Alderman Gilmore, are you good, Alderman Dykstra? Alderman Gilmore?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a further comment. The other way to look at it is to, when we come to the point of debenturing it, roll those costs back in and repay the money that the chief plans to use from the reserve. And that doesn't, we're not depleting the equipment reserve. At this point, it doesn't, in my mind, make too much sense to sort of guess at the number. We don't know if it's going to be 1 or 2, and then try to make up the number and put it in this year. We can repay the money before he has to spend the equipment on the truck. So that's just.
Okay, further discussion on this particular issue or questions moving forward? Alderman Gilmore?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is also relating to the fire department. And I spoke on this last year, and I'm going to take another crack at it regarding inspection fees. I know that you've been receiving a bit of pushback from some business members. So, just a couple of questions for Chief Harry before possibly make a motion. Just want to clarify for my benefit and the rest of council, these inspections that we're doing on businesses, are they in any way mandated by some higher branch of government?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Alderman Gilmore, no, it's not legislated that we have to do the inspections. It's just recommended. In 2013, when we had our OFM fire advisor come down and ask us to do the master fire plan, he suggested that we try to get a program in place to do the inspections, and then we can deal with how often the regulatory inspections need to be. For businesses, we were trying to do an annual, and for churches and schools, they do every 6 months, give or take. So it's not set in stone that it has to be done. It's just to do our due diligence as a fire department to move forward to keep the community safe.
If I could continue then. And I'm no way questioning the value of these things. I actually think that they should be done on businesses, homes, and all, every building that we have. My problem is charging the business owner year over year when generally they're quite responsible people and very compliant. I don't like charging them. I know that last year we budgeted $25,000 and actually billed out 11, so it's not a significant amount, and I'm not necessarily sure that we need to do it every year. I think new businesses need to be done right away, and possibly you could charge first-time business a one-time charge, and then after that we just absorb the cost on the premise that we as a township find value in doing that, and it's just something that that we want to do. So my motion, Madam Mayor, would be to remove the amount budgeted, whether that's an accurate number or not, but just to eliminate the practice of charging inspection fees on business.
Okay, and so to clarify, then that would be absorbed, so that would be a small increase. Sorry, Robin, can you just,
To your worship, the increase would be 0.315%.
okay, so what would that, I don't have my calculator handy, what would that, that would bring it just over 2? Before the region and, okay.
Just to clarify, Robin, what would the actual from 2015 actually be? Because, you know, we had $25,000 in there last year, and only billed 11, which 11 would be in the 2s, I would think, if 15's in the 3s. So, you know, we have no idea what we might bill. Maybe it's going to be 8 if we change the cycle and only go every 2 years. It may be less than that. So I don't think it's fair to say it's 0.3 because it may not be.
Through your worship, to Alderman Gilmore, you're correct that we don't know the exact amount because it has been fluctuating. But if I take $15,000 out of the budget as revenue coming in, it's going to add $15,000 to the budget I have. So it's going to be 0.31. I mean, the actual results might have been 10 or they might have been 20. We're not sure till the end of next year, 2016. But when I take 15,000 out of the budget, I have to increase the tax levy by 15,000 to make it balance to 0.
Okay, so I'll get a seconder and then we can continue. Seconded by Alderman Dykstra. So any further discussion? Alderman Dykstra?
Through you, Madam Mayor, not sure whether this is directed at the chief or Alderman Gilmore. Just wondering, we have a staff person that we're paid for this, and this is supposed to be for Robin. So is there going to be savings in staff time, staff wages? Is there going to be savings? Or are we still going to be paying a person to do a job that the job is not even there? Like, I'm not sure that scenario. We have a fire prevention officer. Where's that person going to fill up their time if we're not doing inspections? I get what you're saying, and I don't like billing out businesses because we need more here in the community. I get it. But what do we do to fill up the time of that staff member that we're already going to be paying? I don't think we're eliminating the position. I just don't know. I don't want to be paying somebody to do nothing.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Alderman Dykstra and rest of council. Right now, our fire prevention officer is 20 hours a week. So I figure she spends roughly 15 hours doing inspections and 5 hours doing billing practices. So she would just have 5 extra hours to do more inspections. You know what I mean? She does an inspection, then she does the paperwork, and then bills, has to call and make the appointment. If it's covered underneath without being charged, she then in turn doesn't have to make the phone call to go out to the place. She can just drive to the business, do an inspection, because it's not costing the business person any due stress, and then she can be more educational purposes as opposed to, and if they're not compliant, then they have their rights to comply afterwards.
If I may continue though, however, the billing that we're doing for the inspections is not funding part of her wage. It is in fact part of funding her wage.
Yes.
And so if we eliminate it, where's the money going to come from?
This is correct. This is correct.
So Robin, so there are more implications then with this. I always see, this one's always a tricky one, so okay, I'll hand it over to
I
you.
mean, the only final implication to the tax levy is the $15,000. So we remove the revenue source of the $15,000. We need to increase our tax levy $15,000. The wage cost is already in there. The whole premise behind the inspection fee was to fund some of the fire prevention officers' wage. As an aside, some municipalities, I mean, I've heard the comment that other municipalities don't charge for fire inspections, but they also have business license fees, and we do not have that in Wainfleet. So some of the municipalities are funding their fire inspections, by issuing business licensing. We don't have that, so
Okay, any further discussion on Alderman Gilmore's motion? Alderman Hassels?
If we say this isn't mandatory, and then I'm kind of wondering why we're even doing it. It should be a fire insurance company that should be looking after it. Why is the township looking after it?
I hand that over to the chief.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Alderman Hassels. The advisor from the Ontario Fire Marshal's office who came down to get started with the master fire plan thought that it would be in Wainfleet's best interest to help prevent fires by doing the business inspections that people in the community frequent quite regularly, just to make sure that everybody's on board with the laws of the NFPA and everything else that needs to be done. When it's a new build on a construction, they've got the chief building official and they have to do everything according to the building code. The fire code is also there to help do the investigation, as well as if anything inspection-wise has to be done, then we have the ways to ask for the owner of the company to be compliant, or failing to comply, then we have orders delay. So it's just to do due diligence and to cover Wainfleet's fire department and council in the interest of anything that does happen.
Okay, any further questions? So we'll see how this motion goes, but I might suggest that at the next council meeting, maybe under other business, if people, because I'm questioning too, I know some people see value in it. It kind of reminds me, I compared it, the one gentleman I spoke to, or I didn't speak to him, but through email, kind of reminds me almost of the floodplain mapping, although you're saying now it's not mandated, but it's something that's maybe suggested, but you don't have to do. And I just find in this day and age, people get so, I mean, I guess if we're going to absorb the cost, then that lessens the blow for sure, but maybe it's something we want to look at in this year of, I think it was discussed that the volunteers used to do it years ago. They'd go out or that was just the smoke alarm program.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the rest of council, the volunteer firefighters used to do 1 week of inspections on a volunteer basis to go to all the businesses. So it was just 1 week, and then it was down to 2 days, and then it was, some of the businesses aren't open that week. And trying to get in to do the businesses, it just wasn't feasible to try to squash all the businesses into 1 week. What kind of inspections actually were happening? I was one of the volunteers that used to do it, and we checked for a smoke detector and make sure that there was no trip hazards. But as far as fire separations, when you got immigrant housing inside a business, that they got to have fire separations between the kitchens and stuff like that, that the volunteers will not understand. They'll have to be educated to do that, but it'll just be a bigger step, that's all.
Okay. Well, like I was saying, maybe we can discuss this further. We can kind of keep this on our radar, but we can make a decision tonight as to, kind of spreading this out everywhere. So if there aren't any further questions or comments, I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that's defeated. So moving on, Alderman Gilmore, did you have any further to? Okay. So any other questions for Robin or for the budget in general, or motions or anything that we want to do? Are we good with this the way it is then? Yes. Oh, Alderman Hessels.
Yeah. So the way I see it, it's about a 2% increase that we're looking at.
Yeah, if Robin wants to give us when you add in the region, and then it's a little bit less, correct?
yes. Through your wish to Alderman Hessels, the increase rate currently as printed is 1.9224.
Okay. And this is including that levy infrastructure money.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Well, I'm just looking ahead. I know we can debenture things, and I know we're going to have to, but since we know that is coming up, I'm just wondering if it's kind of looking forward, is there enough money going to the infrastructure levy to actually look going ahead? Because you're talking one hall, you might be at another hall. So I'm just wondering if that levy should be raised up a little higher than what we...
Through Through your worship to Alderman Hessels. I mean, we can always set aside more money for infrastructure, especially because we know the fire hall builds are coming up and they're not, I mean, at the end of this year, there'll be 280,000 in the infrastructure levy, and then there's the other reserve accounts. We can, like I said, we can always use money for the infrastructure, especially because we know very shortly there's going to be a $40,000 or $50,000 cost coming out of the reserve. So if council chooses to increase, we just have to remember $47,000 is a 1% increase. So if we add 47,204, it would be 2.922%.
Okay. Any further questions or comment? Alderman Conk.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I know there was a comment from, and I think I have to agree that 1.9, whatever it is those are great numbers for sure, but those are numbers that we have been kind of close to for quite some time, and you can't get anything done with that kind of an increase. I mean, I know $43 for some people they're going to yell and shout and scream and holler. However, we're at a point now in the township where we have to start rebuilding fire halls, and there's problems with this building, there's problems with the arena. I think where Alderman Hessels was going is a good idea. I think we do need to increase, even if it's 2.2, because we got stuff that we got to get done, and without that increase, it isn't going to happen. And so down the road, we're going to pay even more. So I think it would be prudent to, even though 1.95 is probably a number everybody's really happy with, 2.25 is not all that bad either. I mean, we have to get things done. Stuff is starting to fall apart. It's as simple as that. We need to start paying now, then pay further down the road even more. Just my comments.
So Robin, so you said the infrastructure levy it was 120,000 and now it's 190. I'm trying to refresh my memory from earlier today.
So, through your worship to all of council, the infrastructure levy, the balance at the end of 2015 is estimated to be 203,087. Then we're adding another $190,000 to it. So actually, the planned amount in the reserve is $393,373 at the end of 16. And that's just the infrastructure levy.
Alderman Hessels.
Well, another thing I want to look at before I go back to that, the arena, you're going to debenture. How many years was that going to be debentured over?
Through your worship to Alderman Hessels, because it's a long-term project, 10 years would be more than reasonable. We're looking at dollars. Because we've been putting aside the $148,000 in our budget, we can almost afford a $148,000 payment because that's what we've been setting aside, so it wouldn't take that long if we chose to put our payments that high.
But that 148 was taken out now.
Through your worship to Alderman Hessels, we took out the $148,000 transfer, but we're using it to pay for the additional arena addition this year. So it's actually being spent on the arena. Similar to what we did last year, right? We put it in and then we said, okay, let's do that extra arena project. And we spent it all.
Well, going back to this levy thing, like sooner or later, we're going to have to pay. It's either smaller increment increases now, or once we get into these halls, and I got to say, I think once the Ministry of Labor comes in, we're going to be in for some shock probably too. So I would say we should probably be increasing our levy. I think at least 1% for sure. I don't know, guys want to try a little bit more, but I would say, one, I don't like paying taxes any more than anybody else. But if we don't start paying it now, we're gonna have to pay a whole lot more later. So I don't know, I'll make that motion
Okay.
that we increase it a 1%, like 47,000 or whatever.
So this is increasing that infrastructure levy 47 and change. Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Alderman Gilmore. Any discussion on the motion? Alderman Dykstra.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just a comment, my opinion, and a little bit of feedback that I've heard as well. I mean, nobody likes to pay taxes. We are being taxed pretty well for the services we're getting here in the community, because the Township of Wainfleet charging 1.9% is only 47. I mean, we don't get all of that tax money. Some of it's from the region and everything else. So the whole bill, is that factored into that 1 point? Is that factored into with the increase of the region? That's the whole bill on a $247,000 home in Wainfleet. You've not added the regional tax portion, correct?
Through your worship. Yes, it has been. If you look at it, the township rate is 0.059. The region, and that has been passed by regional council, that is their residential rate, 0.0058. Waste management, and then the only unknown right now is education. And for the past few years, education rate has actually went down each year, but for some unknown reason, the ministry told us not to expect it till sometime in April. I've heard that education levy is going to go up. So that is the unknown there. So I have an increase in education taxes of $11, which is not been historic. They've been staying the same.
So just to continue on, I highly doubt that $247,000 is the average price of Wainfleet houses. Real estate in Wainfleet has steadily been increasing. So use the bottom number of the scale for the increase, especially for the lakeshore. However, this council and previous council, we've been pretty fiscally responsible. And ultimately, I think it's hurt us as a community when we asked for grant money, we asked for bridge repairs, we were asking for grants, we're not getting nothing because we are being too fiscally responsible. So I really think it's time we probably start borrowing some money, spread it over the community, spread it over some years, start owing a little bit of money, and maybe we'll get some bloody grants, because that seems to be the way it is at the times in Ontario.
Okay. I agree, like Alderman Hessels with this motion, we're still gonna have to get a debenture. You're just saying this will ease the interest, whatever, help us to pay the interest, and that's the thought process, because I'm struggling tonight. I totally see what everybody's saying. I'm still not sure if I'm going to support it. I'm really torn because I tend to hear from the people. We have people here losing their homes. I've heard that, and this is serious stuff. And I know you might look and say, 47,000, well that's, or $47, that's not gonna make or break. But it adds up for a lot of people, just like these inspections that we're thrusting on businesses. And we heard about it with the septic inspections, and an extra $100 or $200 can really impact people's budget. So I don't know, maybe I'm way off my thinking, but we know we're gonna have to debenture. So to throw this in, I don't personally see it making a whole lot of difference, but maybe I'm wrong and I stand to be corrected. So Alderman Dykstra, did you wish to comment further? And then I'll go to Alderman Gilmore.
Yeah, just to add to that, with our fiscal responsibility, we've still been able to upgrade gravel roads to hard surfaces. We have a pretty robust drainage system. Our equipment is not exactly falling apart. We have some pretty good stuff for a 6,500 population community. I think we're doing pretty good. Nobody wants to pay any more taxes. Jobs aren't exactly on every corner. So my opinion only is that we would start to borrow some money and ask for more help from the Liberal government that seems to want to throw it around.
Is that a shot? Alderman Gilmore? We'll never get anything if you talk like that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, I'm actually glad we're wanted to be last year, and I think it's good. The other way to look at it is every dollar that we spend on interest is money down the drain that taxpayers get nothing for. So the more we collect and save, the better off we're going to be. And so we borrow money. With this money coming in, we'll just be able to repay it sooner and save interest. Unless we're borrowing the money from ourselves, the money's wasted. So I think we're doing the right thing. You know, I'm glad that we're here because, and there's going to be a time when, even at 3%, that we may not be able to afford to fund the amount that's required because of the way it rolls over. But until we get to that point and we have things paid for, we don't need to worry about that. So I think it's good. We'll save money and interest, and that's the spin you can put on it because that money is down the drain.
Alderman Dykstra.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I would just challenge us to how much interest we're actually collecting on the money that we have sitting in reserves. Just, do you know, Robin? What would the percentage be?
Through your worship to Alderman Dykstra, the interest we're earning is like 1.2% at the most. Some of the investments for the perpetual care fund that doesn't come into us, well, it does go into the cemetery, is a little higher because it's in equity funds and bond funding, but the bank is giving it for 1.2%.
Alderman Hassels.
Well, I think it's really good to have this infrastructure thing there too, because sometimes you have to have 1/3 or 1/2 of the money anyways. So if something does come up, we could debenture on those projects because we're sitting in a good financial position, because we've got bridges too that need to be done, and you know, a bridge could be anywhere to $300,000-400,000 up to $1 million. So we could never afford that. But if we have this in there and we have all our other assets kind of looked after, we'll be in good shape to debenture on some emergency things, I think. So I'm going to stick with that 1% increase.
Okay, it's a good discussion. I think it needed to be had, and I'm leaning more toward supporting it now after some of the discussion. And again, it's a tough because it's something we know that it's prudent to do. However, and I think Alderman Dykstra's heard the same thing from members of the community on several occasions that we're not in a great economic state, and people are having a hard time, and it's hard. So when you sit and you think, well, for $47,000, could we maybe do without that and do some rejigging on top of the surpluses that we've had? And I know that Robin's been working on that to make sure that this year this budget's really been budgeted for what is needed, and to not have that again. But I was hoping with that we could keep it under 2. So maybe I need to just kind of get over the whole 2% thing and move forward with it. Alderman Dykstra.
Through you, Madam Mayor, one last comment, one last kick at the can on Fly My Flag. If we were to say budget for things like the Lake Shore, the Quarry Road project and stuff like that, it's already budgeted. It's already in the infrastructure levy. I would prepare down the road to put that money into the infrastructure fund, but not off the top be collecting more money. So, you know what I mean? Like it would already be in this levy that we're collecting for the Quarry Road project. But if we don't have to spend that money, could we not kick that money over to the infrastructure?
Through your worship to Alderman Dykstra, that project specifically is being funded from Parkland Reserve, so no. Because if we do not spend Parkland Reserve on parkland facilities, it wouldn't. So if we get funding from, say, the region for $10,000, we would just transfer over $11,000 from the reserve.
Okay, any further discussion on this juicy topic? All right, so I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? All right, that's carried. So we will move along then. We had some cheers in the gallery, so that messed me up. Any other discussions then about the budget? Okay, So are we good? What do you need from us, Sarah? Do we need, so no direction to staff, we've made that motion, so we've got an increase. So what are we at then, Robin? 2.25?
To your worship, to all of council. So we were at 1.9224, we'll be at 2.922, so we'll just be under the 3%. And the motion we will need, just Sarah, I don't think sat through a budget meeting yet, is that I come back with the levy, with the rates in May. The budget is as set, but then the actual rates will come back in May when we get education rates to finalize our bylaw.
So with the region, so we still could be a little under then, right? Is that what you
Yes, it
said?
just depends on the education tax
Okay.
rates that come in.
Okay. Okay, so we don't need a next meeting date, so this is gonna come back next Tuesday for ratification? No? Oh, okay. I'm getting mixed up with the region.
To all of council through Mayor Jeffs, what you could do now is just a resolution or a motion to approve in principle, and then the treasurer will come back in May with the rates, and that will get final council approval in May.
Okay, so does anybody want to move that resolution to approve this budget in principle? Moved by Alderman Cox, seconded by Alderman Gilmore. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. And then we just need the bylaw to confirm the proceeding of council.
Bylaw number 16 of 2016, being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the actions of the council at its special meeting held on the 22nd day of March 2016, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passes 22nd day of March 2016.
I need a mover and a seconder. Alderman Gilmore, Alderman Dykstra, all those in favor. And then I need a motion to adjourn. Alderman Hassels, Alderman Conk, all those in favor, and that is carried.